Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu has expressed concern over under-representation of women in science and technology jobs. Speaking at the Institute of Mathematical Sciences, Chennai on Tuesday, the Vice President noted that while about 40% of STEM, that's science, technology, engineering and mathematics graduates, comprise women in the country, which is the highest in the world, the share of women in science and technology jobs is a mere 14%. This, he said, is a major issue of concern in STEM-related employment and urged that steps be taken to rectify the situation. He also spoke about the trends in STEM and how we can tap the potential of the data science revolution in job creation. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will talk about the gender divide in STEM-related careers and what must be done to bridge this gap. Joining me on the program are Professor Ashutosh Sharma, Secretary, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India; Dr. Ranjana Agarwal, Director, CSIR, National Institute of Science, Technology and Development Studies; and Professor V. Ram Gopal Rao, Director, Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Dr. Ranjana Agarwal, allow me to begin the program with you. The highest number of women STEM graduates in the world, about 40%, but the share of women in science is only 14%. What, according to you, are the reasons that prevent women from taking up STEM-related careers?
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to initiate the dialogue. First of all, I feel very proud when I listen this that India is #1 when it comes to science education, and percentage of women in science education 40% at #1. So that indicates that our government, our policies are women friendly, which are encouraging women to take science as a discipline to study. But also it makes us to think that where we are losing this manpower, which is being trained in best of the institutes, which are going to the higher education, but then not reflected in the workplace. So a lot of introspection is required that where we are losing them.
Yes.
The fundamental thing, I think the nature has created us, men and women, to procreate life, and women has to take the major burden because she reproduces, gives birth to a child, and nature has given us, compassion and patience and emotions, and that these were the roles, I should say traits which nature has given us. But society has made it in a stereotype kind of things. Our roles are fixed. Gender fixation, I think that's the main issue, the stereotype, the role fixation. We are not changing with time, with place, and with environment. I think this is one of the factors that where we are giving the dual responsibility to women, and the child bearing and rearing phase is one of the bigger, I will say one of the biggest factor where women who are professionally trained are, sort of discouraged to take STEM jobs, which are more hierarchical, which are more competitive. So we will have to look into the policies. So to begin with, I will leave here. I would like to listen others, and then I will add more.
Sure, I'll get back to you on how these stereotypes can be changed going forward. Professor Sharma, if I may come to you now. Gender divide in the field of STEM is not something which is of concern in our country only, but worldwide. How would you explain the sociology behind this disparity? Dr. Agarwal has pointed out stereotypes, and also if you could take us through the steps that are being taken by the government to bring about gender parity in this particular area.
Yes, indeed. Our Vice President has flagged an exceptionally important issue. And we all know, so let me first begin by saying that in all areas of STEM, if we were to include also biological sciences and medicine, perhaps the underrepresentation is not so great. So it may not be exactly 50%, but it's not very far from there. Second aspect is if you look at certain areas like technology, and especially if you were to focus on the top ranking institutes like IITs and NITs, mechanical engineering, what have you, then that underrepresentation of women is huge. So it may be 10%, 12% of that order. So it's a multi-dimensional problem. So if we were to look at if the pipeline to begin with is so short, we would not be producing leadership in that area. We would not be producing role models in that area. And that's a huge part of the cultural aspect that Ranjana ji just talked about. It's a very wide arena, if you would, the cultural aspect, and certainly stereotype is an aspect of it. So let me just focus on one aspect of this stereotype and culture. It's the same problem that you would not find too many women grandmasters in chess. So if you look at what the problem is, the problem is that to begin with, there are not so many women who are seriously, in a committed way, is taking up chess. And that is because whole lot of parents and teachers are saying, look, your brain perhaps wired in a different way, which is saying, oh, you can't do mathematics, you cannot do theoretical sciences, and you cannot do hard engineering, for example, and so on, which is a total nonsense. So we have to totally address this misconception, and part of it is producing that pipeline in large numbers so that there are successful women who are able to negotiate with the glass ceiling, with all the challenges which are out there. Now, second aspect of it is how do you address this particular question? It is a big part of our new policy on science, technology, and innovation, which is coming. It's in the final phases of public consultation. So all the viewers who are here, I would urge them to go to Department of Science and Technology website, where a draft policy has been put up for consultations. So it is by crowdsourcing of ideas that would actually address every aspect of where the gaps and weaknesses are. Whole lot of them have been identified with the stakeholder consultation, like the kind that we are doing today. And there are very good solutions which are going to be put in place for this. I'll just give you one example, which is, how do you get more women into top colleges in underrepresented areas?
Yes.
So one way to do that would be to have these science camps that we are going to put up, which would enroll the top 50,000 performing girls in high school, enroll them in science camps so that training needs, financial needs, cultural needs, all of them are addressed at the same time with the same force. We cannot underestimate the cultural aspect, providing interaction with role models, whether they are from corporate world, whether they are from DRDO, whether they are throwing missiles, whether they're making missiles, all of that is going to be a huge aspect of it. Now, other aspect that happens going forward in the career is that often women have to relocate, right? Because of family reasons, maybe it's because of, getting married, and there is a break in the career because of child rearing, as was pointed out by Anjana ji. So all of these gaps have to be totally filled.
Yes, and how we intend to do it is something that I'll come to you and understand a little later. But at the institutional level, if you try and understand, Professor Rao, let me bring you into the picture now. Multiple efforts, as pointed out by Professor Sharma, are underway to encourage women, especially in areas that are underrepresented. In particular, if we talk about the IITs, the number of girl students has increased. If we look from 2016, wherein it was just about 8%, to nearly 20% now. So that's some improvement, but of course, there's a lot of scope further. How is the representation of women at your institution? And in particular, at the institutional level, what is it that you are doing to encourage undergraduate girl students to pursue postgraduate and doctoral studies?
I think this is a very important aspect and a very important problem to as a nation. When you think of why there are so few women in engineering, it has nothing to do with biological aspects. It's all about the cultural aspects, the socio-economic aspects, the perceptions, the misconceptions, I think these are the reasons. In fact, in IITs, we did a study a few years ago. We looked at how many girls are qualifying our JEE Advanced examination. If all the girls who qualified our JEE Advanced examination take admission in IITs, the number would have been 20%. At that time, when we did it about 4 years ago, it would have been 20%. But the actual number of people, girls in the IITs were only in single digits, something like 7%, 8% kind of a thing. So we started analyzing why is it that they are qualifying the examination, but still not joining IITs. It is completely to do with the cultural issue. What happens is if a student gets admission in, let us say, IIT Guwahati, a girl student, the parents don't want to send the child to IIT Guwahati. Instead, they admit the child in some local engineering college. That is what we figured out is actually what is happening. And we said, how can we correct that? How can we make sure that the girls who are qualifying these examinations are able to come to IITs? All that we needed to do was we created some supernumerary seats. In every IIT, we said we will have some number of seats for the girls. And that way the girl can find admission in the nearby IIT. And once we did that, in about 3 years' time, as you mentioned, now we have reached almost 20%. At IIT Delhi, now we will be touching 20% in undergraduate classes. Overall, we have about 30% of girls. We also did another very interesting study at IIT Delhi. After these girls enter IITs, how do they perform within the IIT system? And we took the last 15-year data, and we found out that the girls may have entered with slightly lower ranks when it comes to seeking admission. But once they enter IIT, they have outperformed boys by 1 grade point average. What it means is, if the boys' grade point average in engineering, it is 15-year data, is 7 CGPA, the girls would be something like 8 CGPA. That is a kind of a difference that existed between the performance of boys and girls once they entered the IIT system. I think these are the corrections now we need to undertake. I think, these are very minor kind of issues. In fact, in societies where the gender gaps are taken care of and are bridged, their girls are actually doing pretty well. I think it's all cultural. We need to address them at some point of time. I'm very happy that our Honorable Vice President has taken up this issue.
Dr. Agarwal, very interesting point that Professor Rao mentioned was, when given an opportunity, girls outperform the boys. But the biggest hurdle that we face initially is the stereotypes that you pointed out, that Professor Sharma rightly put forth as well, social awkwardness due to which women shy away from the field of science and technology and switch over to other fields. Now, the bigger question is, how can we get rid of these stereotypes?
The good thing is that we understand the problem. Each one of us, are talking about the stereotyping, about the socio-economic culture, and the resistance from not only from the society but also from the family. Yes. So what I believe, there is also a kind of personal hesitancy also by the women also to take the challenges and these opportunities. So I believe that there is a need to work at 5 levels, starting from the individual and reaching to the state. So at individual level, we have to work on the attitude. The girls or the women have to work on their attitudes, perspectives, and the gender roles. Sometimes women themselves are, captivated by these stereotypes. It's not like always these stereotypes are coming from men. So women themselves are also sometimes they do not recognize it, but they are also bound in the stereotypes. So there is need to work at individual level, then at the family level. That is very important. If family is encouraging, the relationship, how the household responsibilities will be shared. I remember one quote by Gloria. She says, we have started raising our daughters like our son, but it needs courage to raise our sons like our daughters. So, in the family level, we must start redefining the roles of girls and boys from the very beginning. Similarly comes the community. Community also puts lots of pressure. I would just like to narrate a very small incident where, first generation rural girl comes to the university system for higher education. So one day she comes to me and she says she wants to leave at 4 o'clock from the practical class. So my question was like, why do you want to? Her simple answer was like, if I take 4 o'clock bus, I reaches to my home at 6 o'clock, that's fine. But if I take 5 o'clock bus, it makes it 7 o'clock. It's dark by that time. And the whole village starts calling names to me and my family. So, community needs to be sensitized. Like when women are going to science education, technology educations, their working hours are much more as compared to humanities. So the community has to be sensitized. Yeah. And third comes the public system. What are the demands? What is the quality quality support system we can provide? So public system is also important. And then comes the state, which allies with civil society movements and, by way of campaigns, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao campaign. This campaign has made a remarkable difference in the girls' education. So I think if we work at all these 5 levels, I'm sure that in the coming times, India will be number 1, even in the women employment in science and technology domain also.
Professor Sharma, 5 different problems highlighted by Dr. Agrawal, solutions required at multiple levels. How is the government working towards correcting this gender gap, both in terms of short-term and long-term goals?
Yes, indeed, and it's happening. And it was correctly pointed out by Ranjana ji. You see, the point is, anybody, whether it's a father or a mother or a teacher who complains about it, first thing I ask them is, have you taught your boys cooking and cleaning? If you have not done that, then you have no business actually coming here and complaining about these things. So one aspect of it is to take care of that extra dimension outside of work. Now, within the work, if you look at the progression in the workspace, the major issue is that we don't have a level playing field. What I mean by that is that expectation from a woman in terms of the style of working may be similar to what we expect from men. But this is like saying, oh, the objective is to climb the tree, and I would judge you both the fish and the cat by the same standard. So this is about saying, look, let us focus on work. Don't focus on how much of networking is going on. What are the working hours? Can you work from home? Do you have childcare facilities? So this is all part of providing a level playing field. And this is so doable. There absolutely no doubt in order to smoothen the progress, to make sure that the support structures which are needed in the workplace to be able to deliver at the same effectiveness as men, it's very easily done. But often we don't pay attention to it. Now, for example, Vishaka committees, to deal with grievances, etc., they often, is sometimes they're even missing or they are diluted. So I think it is this is the kind of very small interventions which are needed, which are being put, but they have to be strengthened. And this comes from our insight in this problem. That look, this is of course a shared responsibility of the society. It is not simply saying, okay, it has to be done on institutional level, as was pointed out by Professor Ram Gopal.